The organizers looked at the empty seats and rubbed their eyes in disbelief. The final of the Berlin Open, a showcase that was supposed to feature some of the world's best tennis players, was being played in front of a near-empty stadium. The reason was simple: a 21-year-old Filipino wild card had captured the hearts of thousands, only to be eliminated in the semi-finals. The Filipino diaspora had accomplished what no marketing campaign could achieve. They filled the stadium, bought the tickets, and then disappeared once their favorite player was gone. The WA was stunned, the organizers were scrambling, and the tennis world was finally beginning to recognize the remarkable power of the Filipino fan base. On June 14, 2026, the Berlin Open at Steffi Graf Stadium in Germany was underway, and Alex Eala was expected to be little more than a footnote in the tournament. Ranked number 35 in the world, the young Filipino star entered as a wild card and was widely expected to make an early exit. Instead, she transformed the grass courts of Berlin into her personal stage. Her run began quietly with a gritty victory over former Wimbledon semi-finalist Dana Vekic, battling back from a 0-40 deficit in the final game to secure the win. It was an impressive start, hinting that something special was brewing beneath the surface, but few could have imagined what would happen next. In the round of 16, Eala faced world number 2 Elena Rybakina, a former Wimbledon champion and one of the most dangerous players on grass. What followed would shock the tennis world, as Eala stepped onto the court not merely to compete, but to prove that she belonged among the sport's elite. She didn't just compete, she dominated. A stunning 7-5, 6-4 victory sent shockwaves through the tennis world and ignited an outpouring of excitement among Filipino fans everywhere. Social media exploded with messages of celebration and disbelief as thousands of supporters who had never considered traveling to Berlin suddenly began booking flights, while those already living in Europe rearranged their schedules to witness history in person. The Filipino diaspora had found its champion. "It's the biggest victory of her career," one fan wrote. "She just beat the world number 2 on grass. This is not a drill." The moment was monumental not only for Alex Eala but for Southeast Asian tennis as a whole. By reaching the semi-finals, she became the first player from the region to advance to a WTA 500 semi-final on grass, firmly placing herself on the global tennis map. The quarterfinals brought another formidable challenge as Eala faced world number 8 Elena Svitolina, a seasoned veteran known for thriving on the sport's biggest stages. Once again, Eala rose to the occasion, delivering a commanding 6-3, 6-4 victory that propelled her into the semi-finals and guaranteed her a place inside the world's top 30. "I don't think there's any more pressure on me than there is on her," Eala said afterward, displaying the confidence and composure of a player who belonged among the elite. With every win, the atmosphere in Berlin intensified. The stadium was filling up, the excitement was growing, and Filipino fans who had once been scattered throughout the stands were now impossible to miss. They waved flags, proudly wore their nation's colors, and chanted Laban Alex, until their voices were hoarse. The tournament organizers noticed the growing phenomenon, but they had no idea what was about to happen. When they reviewed ticket sales for the Berlin Open semifinals, they were stunned. The numbers seemed almost impossible to believe. Demand had surged beyond expectations, and the semifinals were drawing even greater attention than anyone had anticipated. The demand was so extraordinary that it exceeded the stadium's official capacity. Organizers could hardly believe the numbers they were seeing, and the reason behind the unprecedented surge was surprisingly simple: Alex Eala. Filipino diaspora had mobilized on a scale rarely witnessed in tennis. Fans traveled from across Europe, from London, Paris, Rome, and Madrid, to Berlin, eager to watch a 21-year-old Filipino wildcard compete on grass against some of the best players in the world. Many took time off work, spent significant amounts of money, and traveled hundreds of miles just to be part of the moment. Faced with overwhelming demand, tournament officials scrambled to create additional seating, reopened sections of the stadium that had remained closed for years, and increased security to manage the growing crowds. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen," a tournament spokesperson admitted during a hastily arranged press conference. "The demand for tickets is overwhelming, and we're doing everything we can to accommodate everyone." Yet the surprise revealed a deeper truth about the tennis establishment. They had underestimated both Alex Eala and the immense power of the Filipino community. They were about to learn the same lesson that other tournaments had discovered months earlier. Never underestimate what happens when Filipino fans rally behind one of their own. Long lines wrapped around Steffi Graf Stadium as supporters waited for hours in hopes of securing tickets. Some had traveled from as far away as Australia, carrying Philippine flags, wearing the nation's colors, and chanting Labe and Alex throughout the day. One fan, a nurse from London, had taken 3 days off work and flown to Berlin solely to watch Eala compete. "I've been following her since she was 16, she said through tears. "I never thought I'd get the chance to see her play live. This is a dream come true." The extraordinary scenes quickly caught the attention of the media, with German newspapers running prominent stories about what many described as a Filipino invasion of Berlin, as the city embraced the growing phenomenon surrounding one of tennis's fastest-rising stars. Local news stations dispatched camera crews to capture the remarkable scenes unfolding outside the stadium, while the WTA, which had initially been uncertain about the tournament's appeal, was forced to acknowledge the extraordinary phenomenon surrounding Alexandra Eala and her supporters. Yet as quickly as the fans had arrived, they would soon disappear just as suddenly. The semi-final was supposed to be Eala's crowning moment, the match that would send her into her first WTA 500 final. Instead, it became a painful ending to an unforgettable run. Standing across the net was Linda Noskova, the talented 20-year-old Czech star who had previously overwhelmed Eala 6-2, 6-0 at Indian Wells earlier in the season. Once again, Noskova proved to be a difficult matchup. Her explosive serve was the defining weapon of the contest, producing 9 aces and forcing countless short returns that allowed her to control rallies from the very first shot. Eala, who appeared to be dealing with discomfort in her shoulder and elbow, struggled to find answers as Noskova unleashed 33 winners throughout the match. After just 1 hour and 9 minutes, the scoreboard read 6-2, 6-4. The dream run that had captivated thousands of fans had come to an end. Eala left the court at Steffi Graf Stadium with her head held high. Though the disappointment was evident. Despite the defeat, the 21-year-old had achieved what no Filipino tennis player had accomplished before. She had defeated a world number 2, overcome a world number 8, reached her first WTA 500 semifinal, secured a place inside the world's top 30, and earned $99,565 in prize money. Her breakthrough had inspired millions, even if the trophy would ultimately belong to someone else. As she walked off the court, the fans did not boo protest or express anger. Instead, many stood with tears in their eyes and applauded her remarkable effort. Then one by one they quietly left the stadium, not in frustration, but in respectful silence, knowing they had witnessed a historic moment in Filipino tennis. 1 by 1 thousands of Filipino fans filed out of the stadium. They had traveled from London, Paris, Rome, Madrid, and even Australia. They had taken time off work, spent money they could scarcely afford, waited for hours in ticket lines, and proudly waved Philippine flags while chanting Laban Alex, until their voices were gone. For them, the tournament had effectively ended with Alexandra Eala's semi-final defeat. The following day, tournament organizers looked around the venue and could hardly believe what they saw. The Berlin Open Final, an event meant to showcase some of the finest players in women's tennis, was being played in front of a sparsely populated crowd. As Jessica Pegula and Linda Noskova competed for the championship, large sections of the stadium sat empty. The stands that had been packed to capacity during Eala's matches were now scattered with only a handful of spectators. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Tournament officials and WTA representatives were left stunned as they witnessed firsthand the extraordinary influence of the Filipino fanbase. "What happened here is unprecedented," one tournament official admitted after the event. "We underestimated the impact of Alexandra Eala's presence. The Filipino community didn't just come to watch tennis, they came to watch her. When she was eliminated, they had no reason to stay." The numbers backed up that assessment. The semifinals had sold out almost immediately following Eala's quarterfinal victory, while the championship match struggled to attract the same level of interest. Organizers tried everything, including discounted tickets and free admissions for local schools, but nothing could recreate the atmosphere that had surrounded Eala's remarkable run. The fans had delivered their message through their absence. Watching from the stands, Eala herself was deeply moved by the support she had received throughout the week. She knew she had fallen short in the semi-final, but she also understood that what had happened in Berlin was about much more than a single result. The passion, loyalty, and pride shown by her supporters had transformed the tournament and demonstrated to the tennis world that a new force had arrived on the global stage. The tournament was a moment Alexandra Eala would never forget. In a heartfelt post on social media, she wrote, "Berlin, you are so special. Thank you for everything." The tennis world had quietly absorbed a lesson that previous tournaments like the Australian Open, Dubai Open, and Italian Open had already begun to understand. Never underestimate the Filipino diaspora. They do not simply show up. They arrive in numbers that can shift the entire economics and atmosphere of the sport. And when their champion is eliminated, they leave just as swiftly. The final was eventually played, with Jessica Pegula lifting the trophy. But the empty seats told a story no victory could erase. Eala had become more than just a tennis player, she had become a movement, and the sport was only beginning to grasp what that truly meant. Yet beneath the broader phenomenon, her semi-final defeat remained a painful ending to a remarkable run. Linda Neskova, the 20-year-old Czech player, who had previously dismantled Eala 6-2, 6-0 at Indian Wells earlier in the year, proved to be a difficult matchup. Once again, her explosive serve became the defining weapon of the contest, delivering 9 aces and producing countless short returns that allowed her to control play from the very first shot. Eala, seemingly hindered by discomfort in her shoulder and elbow, struggled to respond as Neskova dictated rallies and struck 33 winners throughout the match. After just 1 hour and 9 minutes, the scoreline read 6-2, 6-4. The dream run that had captured the imagination of thousands came to an end. Eala walked off the Steffi Graf Stadium court with her head held high, though the weight of the moment was visible on her face. Despite the defeat, the 21-year-old had achieved what no Filipino tennis player had done before, defeating a world number 2, beating a world number 8, reaching her first WD 500 semi-final, and announcing her arrival on the global stage. She had secured a place inside the world's top 30 and earned €9,565 in prize money, but the trophy was not hers, and the final would be played without her. The Berlin Open final took place on Sunday afternoon, with Jessica Pegula and Linda Neskova stepping onto center court at Steffi Graf Stadium to only a smattering of polite applause. Just 24 hours earlier, the venue had been overflowing with Filipino flags and roaring crowds, but now it was a sea of empty seats. Tournament organizers had tried everything: discounted tickets, free distribution to local schools, and last-minute promotions, but nothing could replicate the atmosphere that had surrounded Alexandra Eala's matches. The Filipino fans had already made their statement through their absence. For the players on court, the experience felt surreal. A WTA 500 final, one of the most prestigious events on the women's tour, was being played in near silence, the echoes of past crowds still lingering like a ghost of what had been. The energy that had once erupted for Eala's victories over Rybakina and Svitolina now served as a haunting contrast to the emptiness in the stands. Pegula